right. It is time for TV Talk. And time to say a very good morning to Sue Murphy and Joseph Conroy. Morning, guys.
Hi.
Hey, how's it going?
How are you?
Keeping well, keeping well. I know you guys kind of were infatuated with Malice at the Palace, I think, last week, was it? And I was one of those people as well. But Sue, this Untold series is appearing quite regularly in your What's New and Shiny, and rightly so.
I don't know when people are going to stop listening to me talking about this, because I talk about it all the time. And I mean, like, going around the house talking about it all day. Did you know about, like, it's just, I love that they're telling these stories in a new way. And I was saying yesterday, like, Caitlyn Jenner's story, that's the newest one that's gone out, the Caitlyn Jenner, Bruce Jenner's decathlon in 1976 in Montreal when he broke a world record. I knew everything about Bruce Jenner from Keeping Up with the Kardashians. I'm slightly ashamed of that, but that's the person that I knew. I knew he was Olympian and I knew he was famous, but I didn't really know the story. And his story about, like, how he tried to cover up who he was at the time by just playing tons and tons of sport. Every kind of sport that he could play, he played it. And everything he could train at, he trained at it. And became obsessed with winning, not winning the gold medal, but beating this guy from the USSR called Yuvalov, I think his name was. And he was just obsessed with beating him. And that consumed, like, even when Caitlyn is telling the story now, so she's saying, you know, it was Bruce. Bruce won these medals and he became obsessed with beating this guy. And the whole narrative is, I have to beat this guy. He won a medal last year. And it feels like it's not even about the medal. So it's really, like, tension-filled, really, a really good, like, deep dive into an Olympian story. I know we hear those stories a lot, but there's something different about him at the time and why he was so consumed by it. And it's actually really interesting. But the other one is the Christy Martin doc, which I'm sure you probably have seen. So good. The first kind of big female boxer, and her home life, where she was eventually stabbed 8 times by her husband and then shot in the stomach, and was like, he's not going to kill me. No one's going to kill me. And you're just, like, so consumed with how amazing this woman is and what she's achieved in her life. And they're just brilliant docs. They're so slick. They look really good. I think even for people that know those stories, they're giving them a little bit of extra information, but they're also drawing people in. And, like, I'm obsessed with Malice at the Palace. I just thought I would actually go back and watch that again. And I don't really watch docs again. I just thought it was really, really good.
Oh, like, I have to hold my hands up. I wasn't actually familiar with the whole Pistons-Pacers brawl at all. Like, it was just a piece of NBA history that had completely skip me by, and, like, I fell in love with like, I was talking earlier about falling in love with Daniel Ricciardo on the Netflix Drive to Survive. I fell in love with Stephen Jackson on this
He's great.
Malice at the Palace. I mean, just the character in it. Like, Joe, are you along similar lines? Have you been following this whole Untold series?
Yeah, absolutely. I've gone down the Malice in the Palace rabbit hole. I'd be similar to yourself. To me, it would have been just kind of like a viral YouTube clip that kind of pops up every now and then in sort of whoever's conversation about brawls, or especially brawls that kind of spill into the crowd, and that whole sort of really kind of murky world you just never really want to see happen. But I thought it was incredible. I've been there's a little sort of cottage industry now of sort of the fallout from the documentary. So if you kind of go on YouTube, there's all these great deep dives with sort of all the players kind of giving their sort of little extra bits in the documentary, or even just kind of general sort of basketball podcasts and shows kind of giving their own takes on it and revisiting it. But yeah, I thought it was incredible. Great stuff. That whole series has been incredible. Like a quick one as well, just during my Saturday evening troll through random Malice in the Palace fallout clips on YouTube, I was served up as like an autoplay this piece from ABC in Australia. It's called Luke Longley, The Missing Chapter of The Last Dance. And just to kind of set the context, I was sitting there sort of, you know, kind of wrapping up this sort of Malice in the Palace watch. And then this came on and I was going to go and make dinner, but I was like, oh, this looks kind of interesting. Kind of got through the intro and just myself and my girlfriend ended up sitting there for an hour just watching this documentary. It's brilliant. Basically, for a bit of context, he's a 7'2" Australian basketball player who was on the kind of 90s Bulls team, sort of was traded to the Bulls during the Jordans playing baseball season. And it's just really interesting. One thing that strikes you really early is the caliber of people involved with it. You've got like Pippen, Kerr, Jackson, even Michael Jordan in it. And you're kind of like, Jesus, someone's done a really good job on research or booking here. But kind of as it goes on, you kind of realize he's kind of been written out of history a little bit. And one of the highlights to kind of, it's come for the story, but one of the highlights is you've got Michael Jordan there. He's kind of done his flex of sort of being the producer on his own documentary about his own incredible legacy. Sitting there, he's completely written this guy out of the story. Not going to mention, would have been one of the starting 5 on the court for all the big games. Completely edited out. So you kind of realize halfway through, he's sort of sitting there partially to sort of tell his story, also partially because he's edited this guy out of his own documentary, and also as kind of the extension of the flex of being the producer of his own documentary, he's now like editorially standing over his work, which is commendable. But it's really nice. It's a really good human story. There's kind of almost a bit of a, you could imagine if it was an Irish person who'd been on the Bulls team and being written out, so kind of got this slightly parochial Australian take on the whole story while he's telling his own personal story. So just as a heads up, if you're looking for more good basketball documentary content after you've watched all the Untolds, it's one to look out for. That's called Luke Longley, The Missing Chapter of The Last Dance.
Brilliant. Yeah, that'll keep us going. Where can people watch that one, Joe? Is that on, that's not on Netflix?
No, it's on YouTube. So it was just uploaded by ABC Australia, the TV station over there who did it. So that's up on YouTube, free to watch. It's kind of clocked up about 500,000 views in a week. So it seems to be working its way into other people's algorithms and kind of having a good kind of second life there on YouTube.
Yeah, those, like, all of these things send you down dark rabbit holes. Any show that sends you down a rabbit hole, like, is going to be a good show. Like you mentioned, Sue, like the Untold stuff is just brilliant. Like Christy Martin's story is just harrowing in some parts, but also what she's done. Like we talk about Katie Taylor and Kelly Harrington quite a lot in this show, and what she did as a trailblazer for women's boxing. Christy Martin is just incomparable as well, to be fair. Anything else new and shiny, Sue, that's caught your eye as well?
The other thing that I'm absolutely obsessed with is the McCartney documentary that's gone on to Disney. So it went on yesterday. It's McCartney 321, and it's him with Rick Rubin. And this is they've just looked at music documentaries and gone, no, we're not going to do it like that. We're going to rip it all up and start again. And they've taken several Beatles tracks, some Wings tracks, and try to work out how they got to the point where they recorded each of them in the studio. So they've pulled in, like, all the things are on the desk. They're pulling out the drums, they're taking out the guitars, they're putting up the vocals. And Paul is talking through, you know, I Michelle Mabel, like, I knew someone who was a French teacher, and I asked her what rhymed with Michelle, and she said Mabel, and I was like, oh, that sounds great. And then he's talking about, like, how much he loves Edith Piaf, and he's just, it's unbelievable his ability to take in everything around him. Like, he goes to a gig, he sees this guy once and he's like, I'll never forget that riff, and he turns around and starts playing the piano. And what's beautiful about this documentary is they've just let him at it. They've just given him a desk and they've allowed him to just talk about his music and the music that he likes in a really kind of open way. And Ruben is actually really good the way he's directing it, because every couple of minutes he'll just like put up a fader and he'll be like, what do you think of this? And then they go off on another tangent and it goes all over the place. Like, there's no structure to this. Don't expect any structure, but it really works for it. And I did sound engineering in college, and I'm just absolutely obsessed with how they make tracks and where they put in drums. And if they take in somebody and they're like, hey, you play this musical instrument you've never played before, or I need an intro to this, and George Harrison's just like, grand, I'll just play an intro. Like, it's their music ability as a band and his musical ability and his ability to listen to music and know exactly what he needs to play is unbelievable. And I think there's some of the stories I kind of heard before, because I'm a massive Beatles fan, but the way he's telling them, he's just so excited. Like, it's so amazing to see someone like McCartney, who you think would be really tired by the music industry at this stage, so excited by music. And it's just wonderful. I've watched 3 episodes now. I watched another 2 last night back to back, and I was like, will I stay up and watch 6? But it's just, like, honestly, if you're into, you don't even have to be into the Beatles. I really would say that. Like, I think it's just, if you're into music and music production and how they get to a point where they make amazing albums like Sgt. Pepper's, then it's definitely one to watch. It's so good.
Yeah, some of these music docs, like, are just amazing. Like, Supersonic is an obvious one that a lot of people have seen with Oasis, but even the Johnny Cash's Lost Tour of Ireland, I think it was called, and it was on RT at one point.
RT a couple of weeks ago, yeah.
Really, really good. Like,
I never knew about it.
Tour. It's just madness. Some of these stories that you hear are just crazy, but some really, really good stuff there. In terms of other stuff, like, I know over the last month or so, I had a lot of time while I had COVID to kind of sit down and watch different movies, and Us from Jordan Peele was one of them that I just hadn't watched when it was out in the theaters at the time. But Jordan, every single piece Jordan Peele does is excellent, and there's a new piece out as well.
Yeah, we've got Candyman arriving this week, and like you said, Us. Did you know much about Us before you watched it, Shane?
I knew nothing about Us. I had seen Get Out, so I was kind of expecting similar eerie kind of vibes. And I mean, like, spoiler alert, but I'm sure a lot of people have seen it by this point. But when the family come into the house, and it's the exact same family, but way worse and creepier, and I nearly lost the plot. I was terrified. Like, I'm not gonna, maybe it was the COVID that just had me nice and sensitive, but
it's terrifying.
It freaked me out. Like, is Candyman supposed to be along similar lines, or what's the deal?
Yeah, it's good. That's kind of, if anyone hasn't watched it, that's only kind of, it's a mini spoiler, so I'd have to say check that out. I just think what's amazing is kind of, it's always, he has this mix of sort of incredible kind of unsettlingness and kind of classic kind of horror chops with sort of a bit of kind of dark comedy thrown in, and a bit of kind of, obviously, a lot of social commentary as well.
Loads of social commentary, definitely, yeah.
Exactly. So what I think is interesting about this is he's taking, I haven't seen the original from the 90s. I believe you have, Sue, but we're in the kind of same cinematic universe. So it's not a remake, it's not a sequel. It's kind of a sequel, but it's like just same IP, same universe, but bringing it up to date. What I think is interesting is something like Candyman is like, it's such a classic kind of horror, kind of urban legend kind of story. I'm really excited to see what he does with kind of such a conventional jumping off point, sprinkling his own magic on it. So I know it's been really well received. That's out this week, so I'm really looking forward to that.
Can I tell you my Candyman story? I was in college a long time ago. We won't talk about when it was. But I watched Candyman with one of my friends, Stephen Nolan, who decided that after Candyman, he would go into the bathroom and say Candyman 5 times in the mirror and run out the front door. And I was sitting in the sitting room for the entire, I wouldn't go to bed. I would go to the bathroom. I was like sitting there for the entire night going, no. So I will not be watching this film. And to be honest, Get Out has stayed with me since. It was terrifying, the bit where he's in the basement. I was like, no, I can't deal with this, because it's unsettling. That's exactly the word for it. It's not even just full on horror. It's just like, could that happen? That is not, no, he's really good at it.
Yeah, I think that is the perfect word to sum up Jordan Peele's work. Like, you just feel terrified and unsettled after it. It was just ridiculous. I'll be watching Candyman, but I'll be watching Behind a Pillow, no doubt. Some might have missed stuff. You're kind of going back to the music theme here with your might have missed a Metallica documentary, Sue, of all things.
Have you seen this, Shane?
I haven't seen this. I have no idea what this is.
I feel like you would have seen it. I know Joe has seen it, and we're both slightly obsessed with it as well. This, like, I remember seeing this in college. So when we were doing sound engineering, Metallica's Black Album was one of the albums we had to study, and purely for guitars alone, like, it's just such an amazing album. But we had to watch some kind of monster, and it was kind of just to get an insight into the band and what they were like. And I was expecting like full-on parties, drugs everywhere, women, like madness. And we were like a good few minutes into it, so kind of the bass player leaves, James Winstead, and he's like, I'm done with the band. And they decide to go through group therapy and find out about all this anger and aggression that they've had all the years and where it comes from. And you're like, well, it's probably been fueling all of the amazing work that you've been doing. But it's unbelievable. Like, if you think Metallica is sitting in a room and they're being told to kind of hug each other and kind of get over this scenario, you're like, what am I watching? Because it's like, it doesn't match with the public image that you have of Metallica as a heavy metal band. And then all of this kind of like looking into themselves and deep diving into their past. And you're like, what? It is an incredible documentary. It's just like, you watch it and you're like, I can't believe they'll let this go out, because in some of the scenes, they're so honest about what's happened when in the band and stuff that's happened to them in their own past. And it's just, you get to the end and you're like, I never thought it would be at the end when I started watching this documentary, where I would be now and what I've learned about Metallica. And it's honestly brilliant. And I don't some of these music documentaries are so contrived now, what they want you to see about the band. This was really like, it was warts and all, kind of like, what the hell is going on here? It is exceptional. It's on Netflix. It's so good. I know Joe is a mad fan of it as well.
I'm kind of curious, did the sound engineering lecturer kind of wheel in the VHS player and go, now here's how you make an album? Or
He was like, this is how they made an album.
yeah.
Yeah, like it's mad. Like I remember telling people afterwards that I studied Metallica, and they were like, you studied Metallica? And I was like, they're amazing. They're geniuses, like they are.
I kind of came to it from a bit of a similar starting off point. I would have been like massively immersed in guitar at the time, learning guitar, and Kirk Hammett would have been one of my favorite guitarists. Still is, like, absolutely incredible musician, the lead guitarist from Metallica. So I was there. I actually saw this with a friend of mine we used to play music with. We rocked up. It was like limited release in 2004 in the IFI. One of the kind of small rooms. Walk in, nice kind of Sunday afternoon. Loads of Metallica fans there. Start playing the film, and it's like 5 or 10 minutes in, you're kind of like, what? It kind of came with very little context. It's like, what the hell's going on here? And then once it gets going, it's just like, it's absolutely hilarious. It's incredible. It's unbelievable that it exists. 1, that it was made. 2, that it was put out. 3, it was put out. How it was put out, making them look as like stupid as they look. But they're so, especially kind of James Hetfield and Lars Ulrich, the 2 kind of competing band leaders, they're so earnest and so invested in what they're doing. You're just kind of wondering, what's their analysis of this film? What eyes are they watching it with? How do they think they're coming across? But it's incredible, and it's brilliant that's got this second life popping up on Netflix and just sort of working its way back into the culture. I think it's something that we can all enjoy and applaud.
That's amazing. Now I'm going to be giving that a watch for sure. I'm just looking at
not James Winstead. I don't know where I got James Winstead from. Sorry.
I'm just looking at the Entertainment Weekly review here. It describes it as one of the most revelatory rock portraits ever made. If that's not a reason to go and watch it, I don't know what is.
It's unbelievable. Joe, it's one of the best things to watch.
I just cannot wait to see it. Like it sounds for all intents and purposes like something I would absolutely thrive on and enjoy. But Joe, for your Might Have Missed, you've gone to Netflix as well.
Yeah, I've gone to Netflix as well, and the Fear Street trilogy. It came out at the start of July, so it kind of got a little bit lost. It's a horror trilogy released by Netflix over 3 consecutive Fridays. So basically, it's kind of the binge watch TV model extended onto films. And it's 3 stories, 3 kind of horror films with slightly different takes on kind of, again, some kind of classic formats. And they're set in 3 different years, but telling kind of one big story of this kind of curse hanging over this town. So it starts off with Fear Street 1994 in 94, which is kind of your jumping off point for the film. It's kind of the present in the kind of film universe, which then the following one goes back to the late 70s. The one before that goes back to kind of the origin of all this in kind of colonial US in 1666. But it's really well done. It's really interesting as well to see them kind of messing around with this sort of binge trilogy that they're giving you. The first one's great. It's kind of, if you're going to kind of categorize the 3 of them, it's kind of, the first one is kind of your slasher, there's something wrong with the town, kind of out to solve a mystery. There's big kind of Stranger Things vibes off it, both in kind of like the nostalgia. There's a bit of cast crossover even as well. It kind of feels a bit like what they were doing on their summer holidays, which goes on to the second one is kind of basically giving you some explanation for what's happened in the first film, but going back to a story in a summer camp in the late 70s. So if the first one's kind of Scream vibes, the second one's kind of Friday the 13th vibes, then the last one in 1666 is kind of going back to the origin of the curse, while still sort of bouncing back to the 94 timeline as well. And that's kind of more of a like the witch sort of throwback horror. And basically what's interesting about it is, again, it's kind of like the way films like Scream would have been very aware of horror heritage and kind of playing with convention and sort of messing around with them or kind of subverting them. It's kind of doing that as well with all these, because it is such a kind of nostalgia-driven project. But it's one that just went a little bit under the radar in the heat wave. So if you're looking for something to watch and also maybe kind of gone a bit more into autumn, could be one just to earmark. But I really enjoyed them.
Excellent. No, sounds great as well. In terms of, we're tight enough on time, but in terms of the update, Sue, and what you're watching at the moment, I've I've never seen The Wire. I'm ashamed to say. So I've just finished season 1 of The Wire. Like Breaking Bad was my favorite TV show of all time, and I'm hoping The Wire is up there. And so far, Omar, the character of Omar, is one of my favorite characters in any TV show ever. Just incredible. Yeah. But you've gone back to an old classic as well, Sue.
I'm still watching Sopranos, and I've got to that stage where I'm halfway through season 2 now, and it's consumed me completely again. So I remember the first time, when I watched it when it was on TV, we're not going to talk about old but I remember like how much of a big deal it was and how much it had changed TV. And I think like retrospectively, when you're looking at it now, you're just like, oh my God, it literally changed everything about the way TV was made. But you forgot how spoiled you were with how good it was. And I've been watching it and totally going, when can I watch another episode of Sopranos? Do you think I could fit another episode in here? And I'm waking up like in the middle of the night thinking about it and how my attitude towards different characters has changed over 20 years and how I think about them now compared to then. It's just, I shouldn't really say I forgot how good it was. I knew how good it was, but it's just been so consuming. And such an enjoy. Like I feel like I need to sit down. I'm enjoying talking Sopranos because I just need to sit down with people and talk about every single episode and James Gandolfini's performance. But the other one that I've been watching is Modern Love. It's on Amazon Prime, and I think if you're looking for something a little bit sappy and a bit, there's not really a lot of kind of romantic love rom-com kind of things. It's nice. It's just kind of half an hour, turn your brain off kind of TV. And the Love Island finale, which I was like, thanks be to God, this is over and I can have my life back.
Yeah, thanks be to God it's over, I think, is a sentiment most people can get behind, myself especially. Listen, guys, great stuff as always this morning, the TV picks. Sue and Joseph, thanks a million.
Thanks a million.
Cheers.
Good stuff. Sue Murphy and Joseph Conroy there.